Hi, I'm Kelly Ryder, the founder of English Learner Portal. I wanted to stop in today to give you an overview of our upcoming Functional Language Planning Expert Intensive Program. It begins June 2nd, and it is full of incredibly useful, necessary information to take your English language development program from feeling like fly by the seat of your pants to get past vocabulary and sentence stems and really get into what should be part of an English language development program in order to move students toward exiting and give them the tools and skills in language they need to be successful in their academic careers. Let me give you a brief tour of what this looks like in our course. All right, so our program begins June 2nd, as I said, and it is a 12-week program. The time commitment is around 2 hours a week. Of course, you could spend more time if you wanted to dig deeper into the resources and read the research, things like that. But in order to implement and feel really confident for the fall, about 2 hours a week is the expectation. This is our online portal. You'll go in and see where the asynchronous content is. It's a combination of live sessions and asynchronous sessions. I particularly love the live sessions because I get to talk to everybody. We get to talk about your individual situations, different program models. We get to learn from each other, and having people from across the country is amazing. So in the beginning, we have the welcome and orientation, go over the schedule, the expectations, what's different if you want to take or participate in this program for graduate credit, or if you are just absorbing the information for your own personal gain. If you are a Maryland teacher, you can take this for CPD credit. And if you have some other way of documentation that your district or state does that you would like us to talk about, we could certainly help you get what you need for your professional development purposes. In session one, we will be live. That's June 3rd, and that will be our introduction to systemic functional linguistics. This will be where we meet all the members of the cohort. We learn about who's there and what they bring, and learn a little bit about each of their programs. And then we get into why systemic functional linguistics, what it is, and set ourselves up for the remaining 12 weeks. That's a live session. The live sessions meet 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, always on Tuesdays. And the schedule is included in the course documentation. For session two, that's an asynchronous part that runs June 4th through 16th. And we're going deeper into systemic functional linguistics, learning more about the pieces and parts and what is involved in an SFL approach to language development. All of the content for session two is asynchronous and can be accessed anywhere you have an internet connection. Session three is our next live session that takes place June 17th, and we're focusing on the teaching and learning cycle, research out of Australia on a way to approach language development instruction. Think UDL meets practical everyday implementation. That's where we're going with the teaching and learning cycle. Then June 18th through 30th, we're back to asynchronous, more into the teaching and learning cycle and learning about the parts of the cycle, and then beginning to apply that cycle and overlap it with functional language planning and a combination of the two. Session four is when we start to get practical into that day-to-day planning. Session five, again, is asynchronous. More language features to consider. We often hear, what do I teach? We'll often say, let's get past vocabulary and sentence stems. Vocabulary and sentence stems are crucial for content teachers and English language development teachers to use to begin to provide access to content instruction. But then what? What else should we be doing? And in the beginning of July, we start getting into what are all the pieces of language that we need to be teaching through this teaching and learning cycle and functional language planning. On July 8th, we have guest speaker, Dr. Ruslana Westerlin, former WIDA researcher and co-author of the 2020 WIDA standards. She will be joining us for a presentation about one of those language features, noun groups, and ideas for teaching noun groups and helping students work with noun groups. Then we're moving into more asynchronous content from July 9th through 21st. And again, more practical planning, applying the teaching and learning cycle and the other pieces of language that we have covered so far into practical planning for the classroom. This is very flexible and it is guided by you, the participant, to say whether it's a push-in kind of plan, a co-teach plan. Do you have a pull-out or sheltered classroom plan? We can be very flexible about what that looks like and coach each other on how we apply that. Now, by this point in the summer, you would have set up at least your first individual coaching session where you get on Zoom with me and you come with a topic, an issue, a concern, something you want to talk about, something you want to work on, and we have one-on-one coaching sessions. I highly encourage all participants to have at least two throughout the cycle. So as you learn more content, we can talk about how that applies to your specific situation. You are able to have as many as you like. In our spring cohort, we've had people, some participants who had 5 or 6 coaching sessions, some who had 2. That's really up to you. I can see you through a whole process of learning and implementing some of the ideas. Then we move into another live session on July 22nd with the language of perspective building, where Dr. Ruslana Westerlin is talking about children's literature and the language embedded in children's literature, lessons that match and apply in those situations. Through session 9, we have a pre-recorded presentation from expert Andrea Honingsfeld, who is going to share things to think about when it comes to co-planning, co-teaching, collaboration. And she has 8 shifts in mind shifts and shifts in practice that will help you better align your ELD program with the current expectations of classrooms. This is really getting into, now that you know what to do for your language planning and you know exactly what you are explicitly teaching and targeting each day, now we move more into how can I take that to my colleagues, my peers, and coach them and support them in learning some of the same practices and supporting what I do as the ELD teacher. Session 10 is a live session. This is when we're putting all the pieces together. We are talking about practical planning, planning guides, templates, sharing what we've done, a lot of sharing of different examples of how the participants in the cohort have implemented or structured or planned from the materials leading up to this point. On August 6th through 18th, asynchronous sessions, more on collaboration and working with other colleagues in a systemic functional linguistics or functional language planning environment. And then on August 19th, we have our last live session, and that's our wrap up. That's where we share out our final ideas, things we've worked on, make connections for future work, and schedule our last round of coaching. And that's the one session that I'm always sad because you can tell through all of this interaction over 12 weeks, we really become quite a group of support. And I just think like I'm going to miss you all. So I hope this helps give you a bigger, clearer overview of what our online system looks like, what the schedule looks like, and how you might go about joining us. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. My email is info@englishlearnerportal.com. If you want to set up a time to chat via Zoom and get your questions answered, then feel free. It's calendly.com/English Learner Portal. I hope you'll join us. I look forward to a summer of learning and growing with you.